Hello, everyone. My name is Judge Caprio. Today, the courtroom is very intense. The courtroom was quiet that morning. The kind of silence that feels heavy, like something is about to happen, but no one knows what. I've sat on this bench for over 40 years, long enough to recognize the difference between an ordinary case and a moment that people will remember for the rest of their lives. And that day, I felt it before a single word was spoken. Outside, the air was cold. A pale gray sky stretched over the city, and a thin frost still clung to the windshields of parked cars. People walked quickly, heads down, trying to escape the chill. It looked like a normal day, but it wasn't. Marcus Webb stood on the sidewalk, adjusting his jacket as he pulled out his ticket book. His breath was visible in the cold air. He had done this job for years, quietly, honestly, without complaint. In front of him sat a bright yellow luxury car, parked illegally in a handicap space. No permit, no excuse. He glanced at it for a second, then began writing the ticket. Routine, simple. Until a voice cut through the silence. "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing?" Marcus looked up. A woman stood there, perfectly dressed, holding a coffee cup, her expression already filled with irritation. Victoria Ashworth Crane. Even before she spoke again, you could tell she wasn't used to being told no. "That's my car," she said sharply. "You can stop writing that." Marcus remained calm. "Ma'am, the vehicle is parked illegally. I have to issue the ticket." That should have been the end of it. But for her, it was just the beginning. Time seemed to stop. Marcus didn't move, didn't react, didn't shout. But behind him, a small voice broke the silence. "Dad?" His daughter, standing there, watching everything, confused, scared. And in that moment, the situation stopped being about a ticket. It became something much bigger. Back in the courtroom, every seat was filled. Victoria sat confidently at first, legs crossed, her lawyer beside her, whispering calmly, as if this was just another minor inconvenience. She even smiled once, like none of this really mattered. But across the room, Marcus sat differently. Straight posture, quiet, focused, not angry, just present. When I asked him to speak, the room became completely silent. He described everything clearly, no exaggeration, no emotion in his voice. Until he mentioned his daughter. She asked me if I did something wrong. That was the moment the energy in the room shifted, because everyone understood what that meant. Then came the evidence. A screen lit up in the courtroom, a video. Victoria's own social media post. There she was, laughing, mocking, filming the moment like it was entertainment. The room grew tense. What she thought was power now looked like cruelty. And it didn't stop there. More incidents surfaced, other complaints, other moments where people like Marcus were treated as if they didn't matter. A pattern, impossible to ignore now. Then she made a mistake. A big one. She stood up slightly and said, "My father has done more for this city than you can imagine." The message was clear. She believed that name would protect her. But before I could respond, the courtroom doors opened, and her father walked in. All eyes turned. This was the moment everyone thought the story would change. Power had entered the room. But instead of control, he brought something else. He walked forward slowly, looked at Marcus, and apologized. Not as a politician, but as a father. For what she did, there is no excuse. The room went completely still. Victoria's confidence disappeared instantly. Her expression changed. For the first time, she understood the weight of her actions. Tears came. Not dramatic, not forced, real. But they came too late to erase what had already happened. Because some actions stay with people. Some moments cannot be undone. That day, the decision wasn't just about law. It was about something deeper. Respect, dignity, accountability. Marcus left the courtroom with his head held high, the same way he stood on that cold morning when he chose to do his job with integrity. And before he walked out, I told him something simple. This city needs more people like you. Because in the end, this was never about a parking ticket. It was about who we are, when we think no one can stop us. What happens when a police chief's son thinks the law doesn't apply to him and physically attacks a 70-year-old Vietnam veteran in broad daylight? This man walked into my courtroom with a smirk on his face, completely convinced that his father's badge was his get-out-of-jail-free card. But when I forced his father to make the most impossible choice a parent can face, his son versus justice, what happened next stopped the entire courtroom cold. The defendant looked me dead in the eyes and said, "My dad runs this town. You can't touch me, old man." The room went silent, but what nobody knew was that Police Chief Thomas Cole was sitting in the very back of that courtroom, watching his son destroy everything he had spent 35 years building. And the decision he was about to make would break hearts, restore faith, and prove that some fathers love their principles more than they love protecting their children's mistakes. Before we get into this story, less than 5% of you watching are actually subscribed. If you believe in real justice, in honoring our veterans, and in holding the powerful accountable, hit that subscribe button right now. This story is about to spread everywhere, and you do not want to miss what comes next. It was a cold November morning, and I was preparing for what looked like a routine assault case. At my age, I have seen thousands of cases walk through these doors. But something about this one felt different from the moment I opened the file. The victim, Robert Martinez, 70 years old, Vietnam veteran. The defendant, Derek Cole, 32 years old, son of Police Chief Thomas Cole. The case file told a deeply disturbing story. 3 days before this hearing, Robert Martinez had been walking his dog in a local park when Derek Cole came flying through in his BMW at a dangerously high speed. Martinez raised his hand, signaling the driver to slow down. That was it. That was his only crime. Derek slammed on the brakes, got out of the car, and confronted the elderly man. 3 separate witnesses watched what happened next. Derek shoved Martinez to the ground. The 70-year-old hit his head on the pavement. When bystanders rushed over to help, Derek reportedly turned to them and said, "Do you know who I am? My father is the police chief. Call the cops. I dare you." Then he got back in his car and drove away, leaving a 70-year-old veteran bleeding on the ground. Robert Martinez suffered a concussion, 3 broken ribs, and a fractured wrist. He spent 2 nights in the hospital. The entire incident was captured on a nearby security camera. When that footage hit local news and went viral, the city demanded justice loudly. My courtroom was packed that morning. Reporters, concerned citizens, veteran advocacy groups, everyone sensing something significant was about to happen. But here's what nobody in that room knew yet. Police Chief Thomas Cole was sitting quietly in the back row, wearing plain clothes, his badge tucked away. His son had no idea he was there, and the reason he came would shock everyone in that building. At exactly 10:30 a.m., the bailiff called the case. The state versus Derek Michael Cole, charged with assault and battery on an elderly person. Now let me tell you something. I have been doing this a long time. I can read a person the second they walk through my doors. Derek Cole walked in like he owned the place. Expensive suit, designer watch, and that smirk. He did not look remorseful. He did not look nervous. He looked annoyed, like this whole proceeding was beneath him. Behind him walked his attorney, Marcus Richardson, one of the most expensive defense lawyers in the city. The kind who specializes in making wealthy clients' problems disappear. But here is the moment that told me everything. When Derek passed the row where Robert Martinez was sitting, wearing his Vietnam veteran cap and a cast on his wrist, Derek did not even glance at him. Not a flicker of acknowledgement. That told me everything I needed to know about this young man before he ever spoke a word. I looked up from my paperwork. My blood was already simmering. "Mr. Cole," I began, "you are charged with assault and battery on an elderly person. How do you plead?" His attorney jumped in. "Not guilty, Your Honor." I raised my hand. "I asked your client." Derek stood up, adjusted his jacket, looked me directly in the eyes and said, "Not guilty, Your Honor. This whole thing is ridiculous." "Ridiculous," I repeated slowly. "I have reviewed the footage. I have read the hospital reports. I have seen the injuries. Would you like to reconsider that word?" He didn't. "This is being blown out of proportion," he said. "Some old guy got in my way. I barely touched him." The courtroom gasped. "Some old guy?" I stood up. "Mr. Martinez, would you please stand and tell Mr. Cole exactly who you are?" Robert Martinez rose slowly. "My name is Robert Martinez. I served in the United States Marine Corps. I completed 2 tours in Vietnam. I was awarded the Purple Heart and the Bronze Star. I am a retired firefighter. And 3 days ago, this man assaulted me for asking him to slow down." Silence. "Mr. Cole," I said, "do you understand what you just heard?" But what happened next changed everything. I looked toward the back of the courtroom and said, "Chief Cole, would you please come forward?" The entire room turned. Standing up from the back row was Police Chief Thomas Cole. He had heard everything. And when forced to choose between his son and justice, he chose justice. "I love you," the chief said to his son. "But love does not mean protecting you from the consequences of your actions." The courtroom was frozen. That day, justice was not just served, it was proven.